The second key debate that we're having today is around the peace efforts that India has been making at the UNGA and whether it is leading to creation of a conducive environment, whether you talk about the Ukraine-Russia issue or whether it is the crisis in Middle East. What all can India do, and are those overtures leading to a conducive environment? Ambassador Shashank, former Foreign Secretary, Brahma, Chellaney, Strategic Affairs expert with me on the broadcast. And that's a question I ask both of you, gentlemen. Ambassador Shashank, let me start with you, sir. As things stand right now, there have been several key meetings that have taken place on the sidelines. India has been fairly clear that it wants to play some sort of a role in terms of peace initiative, at least create that right environment to get people on the discussion table. How do you read some of these meetings and the posturing?
What I feel is that India considers itself as one of the countries acceptable to USA, Ukraine and Russia on this Ukraine-Russia war. And therefore, India cannot pull itself out of this situation. At the same time, I don't think India is trying to get itself into proposing any kind of solution to the trouble, because what India wants is peace. India wants diplomatic dialogue. Now, what we are finding is that, yes, there seems to be some willingness on the part of all these countries to set up certain kind of red lines beyond which they may not be able to go. But I think there's still a big gap among all these red lines, and therefore India can only try to do as much as possible given the sensitivities of the situation.
Mr. Chellaney, you want to comment there, sir, in terms of some of these meetings that have been taking place, back channel talks, and the message that India is trying to send?
Both in Ukraine war as well as in the conflicts in the Middle East, only dialogue and diplomacy can bring an end to the fighting. Unfortunately, the timing of any peace overture, any peace initiative at this moment is not conducive to success. We saw that from Modi's visit to Kyiv. When he went to Kyiv, the Ukrainian side emphasized things which were at divergence from any peace initiative that India could actually move forward. The Ukrainian side sought Indian participation in the next Ukraine-sponsored peace summit. Now, there was a peace summit sponsored by Ukraine in Switzerland, and now Ukraine wants India to participate in the next so-called peace summit. In fact, the template that Zelenskyy insisted upon for a peace plan is his own 10-point peace formula. And this 10-point peace formula is not a peace plan, but a plan for an indefinite war. One would have expected that after Modi's visits to Moscow and to Kyiv, that the US president, that Modi met with Joe Biden at Wilmington, Delaware, securing the support of the US is crucial for any Indian peace initiative to end the war, or at least to broker a ceasefire in the Ukraine war. And we don't know whether this subject came up in the Biden-Modi meeting, and if it did Biden encourage Modi to pursue his peace initiative? As far as the Middle East is concerned, again, the timing is bad because Israel has now escalated matters by launching air assaults on southern Lebanon. Its strategy is to escalate in order to de-escalate later. In other words, de-escalation through escalation. Now, the problem with that strategy is that it carries risks of a wider war,
right,
bringing in potentially Iran into the picture.
Indeed. And I think that one question that has been asked repeatedly now is, can India entrusted with probably ensuring that the two parties could come on the discussion table, at least pass on messages from the other side, because it has some sort of a confidence from both sides. Can it ensure that the two warring sides come on the discussion table, or is that still some time away, given how fluid the situation is? Ambassador Shashank?
Well, if you're referring to the Ukraine-Russia conflict,
yes,
we have seen the meeting which took place in Switzerland. And perhaps Mr. Zelenskyy wants a repeat of that in New Delhi. I don't think India would be interested in holding a peace summit for the sake of having a summit where Russia would not participate. What India is interested in having real peace, because it's having a bad impact on the whole of global South. And therefore, India has been conveying that sentiment to the Russian side, to the Ukrainians. And Ukrainians are not really free players in this game. There are people behind them who say that, all right, we are considering very actively giving you long-range missiles
Yes.
so that you can negotiate from a position of strength. Now, when you are trying to find a position of strength which you don't have,
Yes.
now it may lead to all kinds of imponderables. So there might be the feeling on the other side, the Russians might feel that the NATO has got involved directly,
Yes.
and therefore they should now take the action against the NATO countries.
Right. Mr. Chellaney, quickly, sir, what all can India really expect out of some of these overtures it's making?
It makes sense for India to pursue a peace effort in the Ukraine war because the Ukraine war directly impinges on Indian interests. The war is bringing Russia and China closer together. And if this war becomes a long war, then a Sino-Russian axis could be formalized. Now that would be America's ultimate geopolitical nightmare. But it will also affect Indian interests because the last thing India wants is for Russia to be on China's side. Given those realities and given the risks, it makes sense for Modi to try and broker a ceasefire in the Ukraine war. So despite the setbacks that India has suffered thus far in its peace effort, I think it'll be wise for Modi to continue making that effort because, as Ambassador Shashank said, there are very few leaders or countries in the world that can broker a ceasefire in the Ukraine war, and Modi is probably the only leader in the world that is able to reach out to all sides, including
Yes.
to the US president.
Indeed, indeed, absolutely. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I'm completely out of time. Ambassador Shashank, Mr. Brahma, for your perspective on this story.